Hey, what's up, you amazing hackers? Hope you're all doing well today. Today we're going to record a Twitter space. You're probably going to see the OBS window if you're watching this on YouTube, and if you're coming to join us on Twitter, welcome. Right now, we don't have anybody yet, but we're going to talk a little bit about responsible disclosure. This is one of the topics that I find very important. What to do when you do find a bug, what to do when you find something that doesn't have a security.txt, a bug bounty program, or any of the other responsible options to disclose bugs. How do you handle a company that doesn't like it when you actually disclose bugs? Or that gives you a non-applicable. We all been hit with that non-applicable before. Or like just straight up companies that don't even want to respond to bugs that you report. When is it okay to actually go public with a bug? Like there was a big exploit on, I think it was Google, and this researcher wanted to go public with it, but they had no idea when to specifically go public with the exploit that they found. Because Google, they said that they'd fix it. Turned out that after X amount of time, they still didn't fix it. This researcher wanted to disclose it, so what he did was he gave Google a deadline, an ultimatum. After this date, I'm going to publish the finding. Doesn't matter if you fixed it or not, I'm going to publish it. That always puts pressure on these suppliers, of course, to fix stuff. But sometimes in this case you'll see as well that, for example, I think there was something promised in November. The security team promised to fix it in December itself. Turned out they never did. But of course that researcher was like, okay, I'm going to publish it on November. He was like, should I wait? Should I not? He was a little bit apprehensive about releasing it in November because they would have promised to fix it in December. So he was like, okay, I'm going to wait with disclosing that kind of information. Very understandable. Eventually he did disclose it, and it turned out to be a pretty massive vulnerability. In my opinion, very good that he did disclose it. But like, what do you guys think about disclosing vulnerabilities in public? Is it ever okay as a researcher to disclose a vulnerability in public? Should you do it through, like, if you find a bug bounty program but nothing's available? Like, what has your opinions been in those kind of situations? I love to hear from you guys as well. In my opinion, like, I'm kind of the opinion that if you don't have, like, if you report it and the company says it's not applicable, in my opinion, they don't care at that point. So that's a very strict line that I am willing to draw. If the company says non-applicable, in my opinion, you should be able to publish it publicly. They think it's not applicable. The company itself thinks it's not applicable. So that's where I can draw a strict line already. In case of non-fixing, in case of taking too long to fix, you can put a little bit of pressure, especially if it's a very public company. And like, I'm saying all of this, of course, this is not advice, don't follow my advice, but I'm saying it anyway. I think if you come across a situation where a firm takes a lot of time to fix a security vulnerability, and the security vulnerability is bad enough that you can't put a little bit of pressure on them. Is it okay to disclose that information publicly in a legal sense? No, probably never. So again, don't take my advice. I'm not a lawyer. I don't know anything about this shit. All I can tell you is that, in my opinion, companies should be able to be held accountable for those type of security findings, especially if it's about client data. Here in Europe, we have GDPR. If there's anything related to client data, I just wish that we could force these companies to put in reasonable fixes legally, as we can be forced legally not to publish any of this shit. You know, that's just something that it's been on the back of my mind for a long time. We can be legally bound to keep all of this shit to ourselves, but they can't be legally bound to fix it in a timely manner. No matter how big your company is, like how small it is, I should say, no matter how small your security budget. I just think it's just like a little bit of a plague in recent days, where there have been companies that want to grow fast, but don't take their own security into account. And I know that you can't protect something 100%, but why? When it comes to client data, when it comes to payment information, when it comes to any of the really important legal stuff, for example, like social security numbers, why can't we force any legal action in that case? I don't know, can we even? I'm not a lawyer. Like, is it a possibility to force off legal action in a case where a firm really doesn't want to fix a vulnerability or takes too long? I don't know. But in my opinion, what I've experienced from that stuff, no, like, it's just legally, everybody who I've spoken to says it's legally not worth your time, it's legally not worth your trouble to pursue. So, disclosure, is it a solution? Officially, my advice is no, but you don't have to disclose things yourself either. Now, what I'm about to describe to you guys is a scenario where you can technically publish a vulnerability without even really publishing it at all. So, if you have a vulnerability, you can't publish it yourself for any reason whatsoever. Listen up. Get a friend, might be a well-known friend, might be a rat friend, who knows, who has nothing to do with the situation, and pass them on the vulnerability. In that situation, the person who's reporting on it is reporting on a vulnerability. They didn't found a vulnerability, they didn't exploit the vulnerability, but they can report on it. What their sources are, it's their thing to keep that a secret, and it's your responsibility to keep your own identity a secret if you're going to leak shit as well, of course. But that's just a hypothetical scenario wherein it could happen that you might be able to still share a exploit without sharing it. Now, again, what situation would you really do that in? In a situation where a company just doesn't give a fuck, or where they don't want to fix it in a timely manner or whatever. I've had situations where people came to me, found vulnerabilities, went straight up to Microsoft. Microsoft didn't find it a priority to fix that, and they denied that researcher many times over before they actually finally acknowledged it. It took more than a year to fix it, still didn't fix it. It was a remote code execution, for fuck's sake. How bad can it get? It's insane. Sometimes I just get really angry. But anyway, he passed me that information, and I was able to publicly disclose that stuff, and hopefully it's fixed now. I haven't retested it yet, but what do you guys think? Like, is it ever okay to publicly disclose an exploit like that? What's your opinions about responsible disclosure? One thing that you might have known as well, I don't know if you guys know that website, but I'll open it on my computer so you guys can see as well. Openbugbounty.com. It's a site where you can basically report anything on anything that you find on any website. It's a way to report to companies that don't have a responsible disclosure program. Now, does it always work? No, of course not, but it's better than not reporting it at all. So if you found something but you can't find any way to report it to the company itself, openbugbounty.org is a good alternative for that. I've reported things on websites, if you guys want to find an easy exploit, by the way. What I sometimes do is I retweet, or I just tweet out a bunch of cross-site scripting attack vectors. And you have all these websites that blindly retweet anything that you retweet, like, I don't know, like TweetDeck, something like that. But everybody's building things that catches tweets and then retweets them. What they don't do often is properly sanitize that stuff. So I often just try to visit a lot of these websites that, and then go to my own profile, and bam, suddenly you have an alert pop up. It's good fun. You guys should try it as well. Wait, no. Legally, I'm not allowed to say that. You guys definitely shouldn't attempt any attacks on anything that you're not authorized to attack. That's a crime. So there, I have my legal basis covered. Now I can shit talk again. I just find it Like sometimes bug bounties frustrates me to no end because you're hacking a website which has been attacked like a million times before, and it's just so much more fun to go and scour the wide internet for exploits and websites that are vulnerable to all kinds of stuff. And sometimes what irks me about bug bounties is that it's free labor, and I hate retesting stuff. As a QA engineer, I'm totally against retesting stuff, and especially a million times over. Now, regression testing is a totally different story, don't get me wrong, but you have these bug bounty targets that are open for God knows how long that have been retested over and over and over and over again. Like, you can only do so many Nmap scans before you've tested the whole damn thing. To a degree, it's also infuriating because you're making people do things that have maybe happened before without their knowledge, and everybody keeps telling me you have to take your bug bounty targets, you have to approach them like you're the first hacker there. I can agree to that to a degree, but it's also super frustrating and sometimes just idiotic because you're just retesting stuff other people have tested before. It's infuriating sometimes. Just treat bug bounties like a playground, my friends. That's the best tip I can give you in that regard. If you ever want to do bug bounties, if you're interested in it, don't take it as a way to make money quickly. That's not how make money quickly schemes work. Like, if you want to do that, start up a Ponzi scheme. Bug bounties is just a fun amusement park where you can hack the way that you want. Because if you get to be a pen tester, eventually you're going to get in a sort of routine where you go through a checklist. You're going to go through your company's checklist. Those things have to be treated, definitely. So if you're at that point, you might as well do some bug bounties and do the stuff that you really enjoy, because when you do pen testing, you have to test for SQL injection, you have to test for cross-site scripting, you have to test for blah blah blah. All of these things have to be tested. That's where bug bounties excels. You're allowed to hack that target, but the problem again is that it's been hacked like a million times before, and a lot of vulnerabilities might have already been patched. It's not as much fun, you know. You can also go and hack vulnerable websites like labs, for example. Also, don't really recommend that. Like, it's good for learning. Don't get me wrong, it's good for starting out, learning how to do these things, learning how to do labs in a critical mindset. But the biggest problem with labs is that people take it all wrong. They think that they can just do a lab and then go on a bug bounty target or a real pen testing target, and that it's going to be exactly the same. That's never true. Like, labs are purpose built for one exploit, for one specific vulnerability. There might be some bigger labs out there, but you still know that they're vulnerable. That is so different from hacking a real target, which you have no idea about its vulnerabilities. You might be hacking, like, the difference about hacking on a practice target and on a real target is this. On a practice target, you have to get into that mindset of, I'm testing for a specific thing and I'm testing like this. This is how I would check for that. Don't learn how to exploit something. Learn how to check if something's there and how to exploit it. That's where a lot of people get this confused by. Don't get me wrong, it is confusing. Of course it is. Like, you get a vulnerable website with one functionality, with one exploit in it, with one thing that you're looking for, or you're going to have a series of labs with one thing that you're looking for. But always try to get in that mindset of, this is how I start, I enter this now, and then I go into this, or why do I take this next step? That's going to help you a lot when you transition from your practice career to your real pen testing career, or your bug bounties, or whatever your goal is. Like, it depends, of course. Everybody has a different goal, and you should always keep that in mind really well. From the start onwards, you have a goal, treat that as like a direction that you're working towards, but don't treat that as like a holy Bible of steps that you have to follow, you know? Just, the thing is, with bug bounties, for example, a lot of people ask me, which vulnerabilities should I know before I start bug bounties? That's not the way this works. Like, you can't learn X amount of vulnerabilities and then suddenly succeed in bug bounties. You can't even learn one vulnerability. Like, come to me and tell me that you know cross-site scripting, that you know everything about cross-site scripting. That's stupid and insane. The same goes for SQL injection. The same goes for broken access control. Like, even CSRF, there's so many complexities that you always have to take into account, and you always have to make sure that you test for this and you test that way. And that's why pen testing is a lot of like checklists, some intuition put into that, whereas bug bounties is nothing like a methodology. Or your methodology has to be, I'm just going to look at my target, investigate every single parameter, and think what kind of exploits I can execute on that specific parameter, like a hacker. If you want to go through that kind of stuff, by the way, what kind of exploits can I do? Go through the CWE lists. Don't go through the OWASP top 10 list or whatever. It's not meant for that. It's never meant to be a comprehensive list. If you want a comprehensive list, CWE is a very good list, which has like links to explanations and sub-CWEs and etc. That's a great place to start. Or if you want to do something, you can also go into a bug bounty platform, start creating a report. It doesn't have to be on a real target, and then just look at the vulnerability categories that you have in there, and then you can go and look at those. If you want to get started in hacking and you have no idea where to get started, I'd start with things like something that's easy, like CSRF, for example, and then go to something also easy but very prevalent, like broken access control, IDORs. Those are going to help you a lot. Like, don't start with cross-site scripting. That's what I'm trying to say. Cross-site scripting is a much harder attack to pull off, even than broken access control, for example. But don't be fooled, because broken access control definitely has its complexities. For example, I'm going to go off on a broken access control rant now. Broken access control, you have a method that you can play with, get, post, put. You have the parameters that you can play with, which can be a file name, a URL parameter, which can be a parameter in the post body. You have the IDORs, which are a subsection of broken access control. Those are also amazing to investigate, but on a different level. Vertical versus horizontal broken access control. We're just talking about first order IDORs and broken access controls right now. There's also a second order IDOR that you can take into account, and even multi-factor IDOR if your process has multiple steps in it. There is things like parameter pollution, which is not really on a top 10 list, for example. You can't find that on the OWASP top 10 list. Or can you? Is it on the OWASP API top 10 list? I can't lie. I have to look this up now. OWASP API top 10. I love OWASP, by the way. Nothing against them. Don't you guys think that I don't like OWASP top 10s or whatever? It's not like that. I'm just of the opinion that you should know the top 10s, of course, but you're way better off investigating bigger lists than just the top 10. Now, if we go and look at the API top 10, we have broken object level authorization. In that case, your endpoints, your APIs have endpoints that handle object identifiers, creating a wide attack surface level access control issue. Object level authorization checks should be considered in every function that accesses a data source using input from the user. So that seems like your IDOR, broken user authentication, excessive data exposure, lack of resource and rate limiting, broken function level authorization, which is complex access policies with different hierarchies, groups and roles, and an unclear separation between administrative and regular functions tend to lead to authorization flaws. So that seems to be your broken access control. Mass assignment, that's also a good one. If you guys don't know what mass assignment is, you have like a specific object, for example, your user, and through the interface you might be able to change your name, your last name, everything about your user, but there might be a property is administrator as well, for example. and that property might not be through the UI anywhere, but it might still be a property that's changeable if you play with your requests a little bit. That's mass assignment. And then we have security misconfigurations. Well, that's a big one, of course, but things like CORS fall under that. Then you have injections such as SQL, NoSQL command, improper asset management, and insufficient logging and monitoring. So I don't know why we got to here, but now you know the OWASP API top 10 as well. One thing that you also have to keep in mind, by the way, is that these top X lists are made in a specific year, like the mobile top 10, for example. A lot of people keep referencing back to that, but the mobile top 10 is like, I think 2016, 2017, yeah, final list 2016. So we're 6 years ahead of the OWASP top 10 mobile right now. A better resource for mobile testing, if you're looking for that, would be, for example, the OWASP mobile security testing guide. You can just look up how to intercept the traffic from your mobile to your server with Burp Suite in the middle. There's a lot of things that you can do with that. So yeah, I don't know what I was wanking about, but just so you guys are aware, I don't hate bug bounties. I'm not a huge proponent of it. I just think that there's a lot of things that could be done a lot better around the whole concept. From my view, it's a little bit too much centered at the companies and not centered enough at the hackers that are making these intermediates, aka bug bounty platforms. We're making them a lot of money because they get paid for the vulnerabilities that we found, for management fees, for all of those kind of things. So since we make them a lot of money, I just think that we could be treated a little bit better as well. I do think that all of these concepts that are popping up with proof of work for, I think, HackerOne is playing with the proof of work concept. I like that a lot, so I hope that that kicks off. It's a lot more like pen testing, but distributed. And I like that concept, you know, like a master hacker who has a lot of experience being able to talk with a triaging team that can then set up like a checklist, for example, of what an attacker needs to be able to check, and they might need to submit video evidence, Lord knows what. I just think that there's a lot that can be done around that concept. Now, back onto the topic of responsible disclosure. When do you guys think it's okay to disclose something? If you found something, do you guys have any opinions on that? Is it ever okay to disclose something, even though the company might think it's not applicable or whatever? I've had this question when I started out with bug hunting in the beginning. Should I actually disclose this publicly because the company doesn't give a crap? I was worried about my reputation in the beginning, that was all. Right now, I don't really care anymore. Like, the thing is, if you start out bug hunting, you just want to be good and you want to like have a good reputation, of course. Sometimes people like me get a little bit salty because like a triager takes away 10,000 euros from you through a bug that you report and they fuck it up, and that gets a rat salty, you know. It just happens sometimes. Wasn't all my doing, by the way. I was hunting with another hacker, and through parameter pollution, we were able to forge a JWT token, which is messed up because, like, we reported it, and I had a little bit of a mishap with the triager at that moment. We lost a lot of money because a lot of things messed up. Anyway, not gonna go too deep into it. I don't really have anything else to say, so I would love to hear from you guys if you have anything that you would like to add to the conversation, of course. If not, not a problem at all either. I don't mind going to bed early, to be honest. I've been a little bit sick in the past few days, so I'm really glad that I got to speak to you guys today. I missed you, everybody here. You rats are amazing, and it's good to see so many amazing people in here. Really, it is. It always warms my heart that despite everything, I have so many supporters still that believe in me. Like, I know that I say a lot of controversial things sometimes, and I might not always be the best rat I can be, but I try to do good for the community, and you guys really support me in that. I can't thank you guys enough for that. Hey Samantha, good seeing you here.
Hey Rat, how you doing?
I'm doing great, thank you. How about you?
Yes, I'm good. Oh, is your audio just gone? I'm doing good, thank you. I don't know where Hacksaw is. He hasn't arrived yet, unfortunately. But I know I wanted to. Oh, someone's laughing. I don't know why they're laughing. Um, I don't quite know what to say because I wanted him to explain to you about the
Yeah,
disclosure thing. So,
I'd like to hear his opinion as well. Like, I know he has some.
yes,
He
I don't know
has,
where he is.
like, I know he has had some issues with disclosures, so I would love to hear his opinion about that stuff as well. But I'd be glad to
Yeah, well,
interview
I'm
him for
sorry. I feel like,
some.
a bit of a nincompoop now.
Oh, it's okay. I was just looking for his tweet, but I can't find it anywhere either. Oh, it's
I
okay.
did, I did, um, did send him a message actually, but I haven't heard back. So
It's
I guess
okay.
we'll have to postpone it for another day. Sorry
Yes.
about
Well,
that.
oh, it's okay. We'll hear his opinion about
It's quite.
this.
Yes. Sorry.
Oh no, go ahead. Sorry, I keep interrupting you.
No, no. No, I was interrupting you. Sorry. I don't. You know what it's like. I don't mean to. I don't know what to say because obviously it would have been nice if he could have made it, but hopefully we can catch up with him another time.
For sure, definitely. Yeah, like for you guys who don't know, by the way, Hexor was gonna come and talk about his experiences with having some quote unquote responsible disclosure. I just I just like to encourage everybody to think rationally and to not be blindsided by having your reputation ruined or whatever. I just think it's very important to speak truthfully, and I just think that we have a moral obligation to be the best version of ourselves and not let ourselves be blindsided by the sight of money, you know? Like, that's what a lot of bug bounties are often about. And then you have, like, people who complain because they reported a vulnerability but couldn't find any luck with triage, etc. And I know we don't know their whole stories, but what's wrong with a little bit of transparency, you know? In this world, I know that we're talking about security issues, but like, why not just if it's a non-applicable, we should be able to disclose it. That's as simple as that. If it's not applicable, then let us disclose it. It's not applicable to you anyway. If it's a duplicate, that's a different story, but the person who reported it should always be added to the original report, in my opinion. Why the fuck not? Well, what's so wrong with that? He reported it anyway. And yeah, I know that there might be additional information in there, but that's not the fucking point. The point is that that person deserves to know what the original report was about so they can potentially fight it. Right now, sometimes we don't even get added and we don't even have a clue what the original report was about. It could have been about something potentially totally different, and we might have been able to exploit it in another way or get like a much higher severity. That's another thing. If you get like something, then you have a duplicate, you should be able to raise the severity of that vulnerability. Like, yeah, it might have been reported as a medium. That person might have gotten rewarded $200, but now suddenly it might be a critical. That should raise your time to fix as well, or lower. I mean, that should lower the time to fix as well. If the severity raises, plus then that should be rewarded as well because somebody pointed out it's a lot more vulnerable than we thought it was initially. I can just
And
sometimes
there's
it
the
can.
other side of it too, isn't there? There's the fact that there's other people that could be potentially being harmed if that vulnerability isn't fixed and it's not dealt with properly, because then you've got the consumer side or the business enterprise side that gets hacked as a result of it.
Definitely, yeah.
Just to put, a spin on it.
I'm always, what my biggest worry is as a company is my consumer data, my customer data. Like, for example, if I have a client and I'm pen testing them, my very first priority is protecting them. So what I always do is I make sure that anything that I send, like report, like, should be sent encrypted, should be sent password protected, any of that stuff. So it's not easily interceptable. That makes me like I want to put my client first, and every company should make their client their number one priority, because we are trusting our money with a company. They should convert our money into safety just as much as functionality. It's there's
Maybe that's the answer. Maybe you've just hit the answer on how we deal with some of these things. So if pen testers became, I know you're probably going to hate me for saying this, but regulated, they could then maybe have the power to enforce the company fixing the problem.
I like that idea. I
Does that
like
make
that a
sense?
lot. Yeah, because doctors are in a sense regulated as well. And I don't want to compare like the work
Yes.
that a pen tester does to the importance of the work of a doctor, but if we can regulate such a
Well,
complex practice, why can't we regulate the security industry either? Like I
well,
we
I
shouldn't
don't mean, when I say regulate, it's a crappy word, isn't it? Because I know
yeah.
everybody hates that word, especially. But or maybe there is an association that you get registered as, like doctors are registered
Like the bar.
for their practices, and many industries have their, solicitors and dentists, and it's not unheard of, is it? And if then you have an accreditation to your name, but with that comes some form of enforcement power that somehow forces the company to fix the problem.
I love that idea. Like getting the bar, like getting your dentist license, yeah. Like and of course it's
Yeah, and if you're not licensed pen tester, then it's just. I mean, of course, there will still be people like that, won't there? But it just becomes a different viewpoint, and companies will want to comply by having an authorized person as opposed to, because that, especially with all the different compliance laws and everything. Anyway,
yeah.
sorry, that's just my take on it.
No, I love it, and like I just want to beg everybody to not let that be OffSec. Offensive security is like right now everybody sees offensive security and OSCP as the end all be all of certifications. You have to have OSCP. You have to have OSCP. Like it should be something that is like if it's regulated, it should be at least affordable as well. Well, if it's certified, if it's properly certified through regulation, if I can call it that way. It's hard to describe. I wonder who is responsible for setting up the bar for lawyers as well. Like, is that the government? Is that a specific association that does that? I have no idea, but I love that idea.
I think they're like, I don't know, across, I mean, it's probably different in different countries, but I think they're just like regulatory bodies on. Well, some of them are regulatory bodies like Ofcom, or that I suppose that deal with more things like, I think they're probably mostly associations. But
Yeah,
I don't know.
apparently the Unifor
But
bar example. Yeah,
I
it's
think with law, it's probably
you
of a
read.
higher. It might be a government thing, maybe. I think it's probably different for different industries, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
But
Yeah, and why not regulate this through law, right? I think this can be
and it's not.
important enough. Like, maybe there should
Yeah,
be a
definitely.
distinction being made as well. Like, I do think that a web shop should have a level of accountability through their security with a certain certification, like a enforceable security certification,
Yeah,
being
because it
that
doesn't have to it doesn't have to be about it's not necessarily a training accreditation. You just have to prove that you are skilled, perhaps, and have some authenticity to get accredited by an association. It's not necessarily about an examination process that costs a fortune.
yeah, like having to, what I find important is coverage. That's something that I put a very heavy emphasis on, because there is no other real way of standardizing this type of security requirements, in my opinion. I think it's very important that coverage is regulated well, and that anybody who gets this, well, how should we call it, this imaginary certification should be demonstrating that they are testing for everything that is required to be tested for. And it should be something where you can even say, if you don't test for all of these things, you don't pass, because it's important enough, in my opinion. I might be alone in that opinion, but
No, I don't think you are. I think even businesses probably welcome something at some point, because they're just getting overrun if they actually have an idea what's going on with their computer systems. But it's how tragic it is out there at the moment.
definitely.
I think the whole community, actually, as a whole, would probably embrace something like that, just to give you a focal point. Because at the moment, it's just like it's just one dumpster fire after another, isn't it? So, and we don't really know the true extent of the damage that's going on, because you're not forced to disclose it in any way, are you, currently, unless you're in Europe, and it involves certain criteria.
Yeah, that's a problem as well, I think. Like that responsibility to disclose if you're being hacked is something, like, even if you, like, there are companies that are forced to disclose this kind of stuff, don't disclose it and say, I just eat up the fine, because the fine is worth less than actually losing all of my customers over.
Isn't that essentially the essence of the story with Uber?
Yeah, let's open that can of worms, shall we?
Well, no, I didn't want to open that one, but it's one that many people have heard of, and it kind of gives you an idea. But I just, when I sit and think about it, you think, my God, the amount of disclosures that we do know about in the security world. Imagine if everybody had to disclose. I mean, I don't know what percentage. I'd love to know the stats on it, actually. I think it'd be quite interesting what the stats of, the disclosures were over potential other breaches that we don't know. Sorry, that makes no sense, really, because how are we going to know? But it would just be an interesting statistic, I think, to see at this current juncture, because there must be tons of them that we don't have a clue about. And what would the world look like then?
I totally agree, though, because we can draw some conclusions if we look at the amount of fines that have been executed because of this. But like you say, of course, it's impossible to know exactly how much damage has been done and all of that stuff. Yeah, unfortunately.
There's so many networks and machines out there that are compromised, and people don't even know it, especially with the small business and home users, I think. And you might be able to see it doing showdown, but your normal person isn't obviously going to be accessing that kind of information. Maybe that's the stark and shocking news that needs to be seen in this world to make people wake up to what's going on, what they need to be doing to protect themselves and their businesses.
Yeah, and like money should be put behind this, real money. If we talk about getting this stuff regulated, the problem is that if we talk about regulating the financial industry, for example, there's barely enough resources for that as it is, and now we want to get security regulated as well. I think there should be some kind of regulation, but who's going to pay for that, right? Who's going to pay to put a certain institution in a certain position? Like it has to be tax money. There's no other way because there's no credible source other than a government. And even then, do you trust your government to set those regulations, right?
No, but the regulations. I mean, if they
Yes.
came from an independent association, they're not. It's not about regulating the business, is it? It's about regulating the pen testers that need to go into the businesses and then enforcing the fixes.
Yeah, like
It's not. It's
especially
not
those
giving them.
fixes.
But who pays for that? I don't know. I don't know how these other associations are funded. They must be. I don't know. I'll have to look into that, actually. It's an interesting thought process. You know, you've had. I'll shut up now because you've had someone else come up as a speaker. Hi, IT security.
Oh, yeah, sorry. Yeah, my memory is a total mess. Hey, Neil, how are you doing, man? Good to see you.
Hey, Samantha just kind of triggered me a little bit because I work as a red teamer, and what she was saying is really, really important. You know, having regulation or boundaries on what people can and can't do, and also how you can and assess a situation or an environment and still have done something that's commendable. And the reason why I wanted to come up is I really don't believe that if you are going to have a software as a service or tool that you open source, we need the government. I've always been skeptical, and full disclosure for everybody who is here, I'm from Zimbabwe. Zimbabwe is a very small Southern African country that is the biggest inflation compared to Germany back in World War, whatever. And that I truly believe that as individuals, we can fully self and sufficiently manage ourselves. That means that if we are a managed service provider, we have to hold ourselves to a higher standard that our customers don't have to ever question us. If you open source a software, I'm hoping that if we find a bug that affects our customers, regardless of how it makes us look, I hope we do that. I've been part of some open source projects in pseudonyms where we had to disclose that, hey, we have an RSCE and we lost half of our customer base. Well, not customers, but clientele. So I truly believe that while government agencies and institutions can and should the cyberspace and, you know, the open source world, I think that us as a community are very responsible. If I find a project that is very sketchy, whether it's Uncle Red or anybody else put it out there, I'll give them enough warnings like, hey, this is a bug here, can you please fix it? 3 weeks later, if they don't, a month later, I'll tell them, hey, I'm about to make it public. So I think it's more about the community policing itself than relying on any organized entities, whether they're governmentals or not. And that's what I wanted to come on call and say about.
Yeah, no, I appreciate what you're saying, and I wasn't trying to suggest that pen testers were behaving badly at all. I was more thinking about the lines of responsible disclosure from the aspect of the companies. There is so many exploited networks and machines out there that people don't fix because they either don't know about them or, as we've said many times, you report something and you just get nowhere with it. So in order to perhaps chivvy those people along to a more secure place, in their lives with networking and their devices. Perhaps having some regulation, people that are authorized pen testers that go in, they have, companies that want to be seen to be having the right type of person doing this job, or whatever. They're forced to do that, and you're then given some kind of power to make sure that they implement fixes that they need to fix to a certain level. We do need something to work to, I think, in terms of security practices from all levels, from consumer, from small business. And I think really the pen testers are the ones, because they're the ones breaking in, aren't they? So it's not about regulating what you do specifically. So that's just, do you understand what I'm saying?
Yes, yeah, I do, and I'm following. Yeah, that makes sense.
So I just wanted to be clear. I wasn't here to upset pen testers and say for any, that you're doing you shouldn't be doing this or you shouldn't be doing that. I mean, I think you should be doing everything personally. If you can get into it, then somebody needs to know about it. So.
Yeah, and to be honest, Samantha, I agree with you. I actually think that pen testers who are hired usually find themselves with their hands tied where they can't and shouldn't, because they were paid to do the work.
Yes.
Whereas bounty hunters or anybody on the internet can and is almost empowered to give the company an ultimatum like, hey, I found a bug on the company. I've been talking to you for a month. I'm about to go and share it with Uncle Red, and Uncle Red might share it with other people, or he might actually make it a public disclosure. I have found responsible disclosure platforms out there. I've heard some people use them, not myself, but people from my YouTube channel who are like, hey, I found a bug on a bank account website. It's not a bug bounty website. How do I tell the bank without them coming after me?
Yes.
So there are those responsible disclosure sites. And I think they actually end up giving employers and companies an ultimatum like, hey, it's a bug. We've known about it for a month. If you don't disclose it out there, we are going to, because this is what we do. And I think those ones are a better resource for us.
Yes, well, it would be nice to have an association that kind of covered all of it, really, wouldn't it? A security association that, we've got all these alliances, all these cyber alliance organisations. I'm not entirely sure what any of them really do. So we seem to have a lot of them, though. But, but somebody that has a bit of clout that can cover all of those things. And even if, I'd like to see all companies have to disclose a breach ultimately, but I don't know if we'll ever get to that point.
Yeah, usually when a big corporation has to disclose a breach, it's like the lawyers have to be involved. It takes weeks, if not months. They have to make sure that, they're not going to go under after disclosing.
Well, they have to do certain types of data in Europe. They have to do it within 3 days, I think.
Yeah, even in the US where I am, they're like required, but it's a soft requirement. I think Europe is way better with GDPR and also just the European standards of data protection for customers. The US government, especially with this Biden guy, they're trying to figure it out. But the truth is, if I were a company and I operated on Amazon and I realized that Uncle Red breached my website, and if I made it public on Twitter before I confirmed that I have it under control, I might lose all my customers. I would have to go and consult a lawyer, and the lawyer has to tell me like, hey, this is what you can do. And the laws and the prosecution rates and also what people can do are usually up to interpretation. Lawyers can fight that. That's why that I think that when you have a program that's open sourced, it's very clear, because the license that you issue kind of commands you like a soft, be a decent human being, to tell people when their CV is identified. But private employers, I think they tried their best to do what they can with and still maintain their business, because the last thing they want to be saying is, yeah, we got a CVE. Don't swipe your card at us until we fix it. Then it will be 3 months. Then they're losing 3 months worth of revenue. They don't like that.
Yes.
And the weird thing,
Let
you
me.
and I mean,
I'm
Samantha,
sorry. I'm going to play the devil's advocate here.
yeah,
My information is on this website that has been hacked. I need to know now that I need to change my information, not in 3 months.
Samantha, please help Uncle Red first.
Well, it's a very good point. And I mean, you're raising all sorts of things that I hadn't really thought about when I said that. And we were just talking about one specific thing. And now my head is racing because, of course, there are so many other nuances to that, which I'm just sort of, getting my head round after everything you said. But then it's messy, isn't it?
It is messy, but I was going to suggest, as a consumer, Uncle Red, you said that your information was on my website and you wanted to make sure that it's clean.
Yeah, like I get the point, by the way. I understand it because I have a website as well, Hacker Rats, that got hacked. Surprise, you make a website for hackers, you get hacked. Who would have expected that? But the biggest problem that I have is that right now a company there is no seal of approval for a company to have a specific level of coverage, and there is no minimum level of coverage that any pen testing company should provide in order to call themselves a pen testing company. What I see often, for example, is that vulnerability scans are being sold as pen tests. And that doesn't cover it for me. That enrages me because that brings our magnificent craft into a bad daylight. As pen testers, we seem bad because there's a few rotten apples. And a big point that you brought up as well is that you have vulnerability disclosure websites like openbugbounty.org, but the problem is that 9 times out of 10 they don't accept intrusive testing. So anything like SQL injections aren't accepted through websites like this. That is because they want to defend themselves, of course. They don't want to get into any legal trouble because they have to verify your claim as well. And they're not going to attack with intrusive testing, of course. But the thing is as well is if I find a vulnerability on a banking website, I might as well just go to Zerodium and sell it there instead of trying to resolve it peacefully. That's something that I just always see that for a hacker, if it's easier and more lucrative for them to choose chaos, they're just gonna choose chaos. Well, not every hacker, of course, but especially some of the bad actors, they're going to choose chaos. And Zerodium then goes on and sells that vulnerability onwards to the manufacturer, I know, but that's costing them. As a manufacturer, it's going to cost me a lot more money to buy something from Zerodium than to just offer up a proper bug bounty program where I just have a security.txt even, and I say, this type of vulnerability constitutes this much, this type constitutes this much. Just some food for thought. Maybe we should just force everybody to at least have a security.txt and make it a legal requirement. We've made that stupid cookie shit a legal requirement, for fuck's sake. Why can't we make the security.txt one?
Yes.
Sorry.
It's the manufacturers that they should fund an association, and they should be legislated against. Surely they need to be fined if their equipment or their software is found to be vulnerable.
Yes.
Because ultimately I know that's probably crazy as well, but
No. Like let's imagine the medical industry, for example. A pacemaker should at least be certified for security. It's a wireless
yes.
communication device.
Yeah, excuse my French. Absolutely, that's one thing that really bugs me, because again, I think that medical equipment that goes on the internet should be treated as medicine, you know, and you don't get a new drug on the market without it going through years and years of fucking trials and stuff. I don't understand why medical equipment, especially stuff that goes in your body, is not subject to the same standards before it's allowed out there. That one drives me mad.
Yeah, Uncle Rich and Samantha, I found out like 3 months ago, one of my YouTube subscribers sent me a message saying, "Hey, I found out that this baby camera, while it doesn't come with default settings, it hosts an SMB server by default when it's set up." And I don't know how to say to the manufacturer because they're in China, but they are hosting a web server which is part of their SMB profile, and that web server is accessible to anybody with the default credentials for the camera. So they can see the pictures of the children that were recorded and saved to disk. And I'm like, okay, I guess we can actually disclose this to the people. And we did try. This is where I really empathize with hackers and people in the InfoSec community. We're like, hey, you should not enable SMB share to the public and force the user to accept that as part of outgoing traffic without authentication.
Again, though, that's manufacturers, isn't it? So that this is, we do have to drill down on the fault of the issue, and that is, it's coming from the manufacturers, isn't it? It's not anything for, you know, that the person is doing or the company. It has to be their responsibility. So how do we force that? Isn't some of the things like the S-bomb that will sort of step up slightly, won't it? Because you have to obviously prove what's in your actual device that you're buying, or it's an audit process, isn't it, to make sure it is what it is. If you're familiar with that, I'm sure you are, but surely
the problem was I thought the same as you, Samantha. Like, well, it's the manufacturer, they should know how the product works. No, the manufacturer actually doesn't even know anything about the product. They just manufacture it and ship it. So when we were talking about these things to them, they didn't even understand what we were talking about, because they're part of the pipeline, part of the chain. They manufacture, they ship. When you say, oh, the software does this, unfortunately, in as much as, you know, I was hopeful, they don't care.
Yeah, but...
And they don't actually put it up to the software developers. It's almost like a segmentation throughout the entire supply chain. And if people feel like if they speak up because of what a customer brought up, it's going to take away a significant portion of
the thing is, though,
they won't.
You have to take this into account, though. If we import a toy, there's a CE mark on it here in Europe that indicates safety. The same can be said for things that you point at your kids, you know, cameras that you point at your kids. Why don't we put any certified marks on there that this has a certified security level of ABC? And then, of course, it is up to the manufacturer to know what systems and what parts of the system they use as well. If they cannot get Europe certified, okay, then they have to go back to the drawing board. That's their problem.
You just raised two really interesting points there, actually. One is that, what does that safety mark, kite mark, actually cover? And maybe there is a legal standpoint there that should definitely, if somebody knows about these things, law-wise, they should definitely have a look at that, because that's an interesting one. But also, wasn't it announced in the US recently that there was that somebody wanted to implement some kind of grading system to put on, particularly, I think it was routers, home routers and cameras, so that somehow somebody's going to create some kind of, tiered system. So 5 is the best security, and obviously 1 being the least security, which would obviously be relevant to what features, I mean, are contained within that product you're purchasing. So obviously that gives a price differentiator, and then people can make a choice about whether they're buying a quality or a more secure product. So that's kind of part. I'm sure I heard that anyway recently. Does anybody know that? But
I know that. I can second that. It's a thing where the community can and should rank products that are out there.
But this is a government-led scheme. I thought that I'm sure. I mean, I have no idea if it was actually going to happen or if it's just something somebody's talking about. But it was definitely government-led. I mean, do you think that would be a good starting point?
Yeah, I do. It came after the Keystone Pipeline. So for those on the call who don't know what the Keystone Pipeline, Keystone Pipeline provides a lot of the U.S. People with gas and oil, and it was hacked 3 months ago. And the U.S. government was like, well, we can't have people just hacking critical infrastructure. So we need to make sure that we police that as well. But in addition to that, you can just police, key infrastructures in gas lines and food. Now they police people who raise cows and chickens because Americans eat a lot of beef and, pork, chickens and things like that. But in addition to that, you also have to ensure that if consumers are going to be buying products and putting them in their houses, like you say, they are also protected. I don't think that the world had been challenged before then, where they actually had to do something. And the European Union was way ahead when they said, hey, we got some guidelines. If you're going to keep an EU member's information, it has to be within, I think it's 5 years or 6 years. Or if you are going to do something with information from an EU member, you got to do this. And I think the Americans were looking at that and were a little reactionary to that. And the most important thing is, though, like you said, Samantha, is I think the consumer is being protected. They have legal grounds to seek remediation. So if your information is exposed because I was holding on to it and I didn't properly safeguard it, you actually have some recourse. And as a business, I'll compensate you enough that, it doesn't have adverse effects. And I think that's what governments are after. And in the US right now, I think they're still trying to figure it out, but the EU has figured most of that. And where I'm from, in the African Union, we haven't been speaking about this as much. So as far as I'm concerned, that's what I'm more interested in. As an African in the African Union, do I have the same protections as the EU people or the Americans or anybody else? But yes.
Well, myself as an English person in the UK now, I don't have those protections because we're no longer part of the EU, and I'm not even entirely sure what our government is doing about anything, actually. We just seem to be failing on all counts. So I don't know how that would work for me these days. I'm quite gutted, actually, about doesn't matter, that's completely off topic. But yes, I don't know where I stand as a citizen of the UK currently. But yeah, no, I hear what you're saying. I have a friend who's from Ghana, actually, who shares your viewpoint, and he's very concerned about lots of these things too.
Yeah, and Samantha, to be honest, I don't think I'm planning on going for a master's at a local university. What you and I are talking about right now, what do we know about the protections of the UK citizens after they leave the EU? What do we know about those from Somalia, a very small country that's really just getting developed? And I don't know, I'll ask everybody on the call, is it our responsibility to make sure that everybody in the world is secure and has the right protections and has the same rights on the internet as everybody else? Because as far as I'm concerned, if you're in Zimbabwe and you say something bad about the government or the president, they will find you. I went to school and I found out, oh, these assholes, forgive my language, they went to great length to prohibit specific encryption algorithms just to make sure that if you say something funny, they can track you down. And for anybody who has been on the internet, that should drive you nuts. Like, wait a second.
Yes.
The government can say the pipes coming into our country cannot have MD5 hashes anymore. We only like RSA 256. It's a thing. Saudi Arabia is doing the same thing right now. A bunch of other countries are doing the same thing where they say WhatsApp is not allowed. We have our own WhatsApp. TikTok is not allowed. We have our own TikTok.
Who wants TikTok anyway?
Yeah.
Sorry.
They want their own little apps with an algorithm that they have access to.
Yes.
And to me, to be honest, as a security person, while I may show up and get paid and do my job, I'm looking at the world and be like, what the hell? What are we doing? And I
So
don't
you feel that
expect
it's your
of-
responsibility amongst your peers to challenge that?
Yeah, I can challenge that, but I don't want to come from it from an arrogant person saying, I know it all. I'm
It's yeah, like I think it's really important to defend your rights like that, of course, and it makes me think about all of the stuff that's happening in China as well. Like in China, if you go there, censorship rules. If you just type in Tiananmen Square in like in China in Google or something, well, they don't even have Google. If you type it into Weibo or whatever, they
And that, by the way, I'm not heavy breathing.
there we
If
are
you
again.
can hear the kind of heavy breathing, snory type of noise coming from my phone if I forget to put my mute button on, is my dog. So just
same
so
as
you know.
me. I have a server room. I'm sitting in a server room right now. This is
Oh.
my space.
Your server room, and yeah, well, yeah,
I
I'm
too
in
have
my
a server room.
too with my dog.
It's not that big. It's not that big though. Trust me. It's
Oh no, this is a big one. He's an old boy though. Well, anyway, I got a whole load of new stuff to think about now, but particularly, I really like to explore the safety mark thing that you raised. I thought that's definitely something I've never considered, and how that would work, because especially when it comes to kids,
yeah.
like you said with the camera. There was a story that went a bit viral on Facebook a little while ago, and I'm firmly of the view that if only we could create some more of these stories that are in consumer land, but when something actually hits that, you know, an individual, and as horrible as that is, I'm not condoning that at all, of course, but this lady actually, oh God, I can't remember now. I think her baby basically was in a cot and had I can't remember what device it was now, but essentially that somebody was talking to her baby through the intercom thing or whatever hacker was. So, and of course she was like, oh, my parents knew about that. That's the best marketing you could have, isn't it, for fixing stuff, because getting that sort of word round other parents, other mother, you know, you can just I don't know, it just works much better than somebody like yourself trying to tell a parent that these things could happen. It's like the old FUD situation again, isn't it? So,
and for these things, it doesn't have to be complicated. Like you can you can legally force them to only have a port open to a web server that streams encrypted data in at least a certain encryption algorithm or something like that. That already gives you a lot
I mean,
of
that's in a perfect world.
yeah, like, but the thing is,
Sorry, Rat.
that would be my safety mark for a baby monitor, for example. And you can talk about
Yeah,
audio
but
that
even
can
just
be.
creating the awareness that the parents don't even
Oh
know
yeah,
that they've got reason to worry. And I think it's getting those two ends and meeting them in the middle, isn't it? Because we've got a whole bunch of people that haven't got a fucking clue, and then you've got you guys hitting your head against a brick wall for various reasons because the manufacturers aren't implementing whatever security level, or they're not responding to you when you're trying to report something. All
the
the
thing
different
is,
things that we've been through tonight.
yeah, but like, I don't
Go
think
on.
you should be
Sorry.
reporting, or I don't think we should be counting on the parents for this. My mom can't even install a fucking printer, let alone worry about what kind of
No.
things are under. Like, if a hacker can talk to their baby, like, I think we should be going to government for this. And I know that we shouldn't be trusting our governments blindly with this kind of thing. But there are like instances like OWASP, for example, that I would trust with this kind of responsibility. The thing is, they're just underfunded like hell.
Of course, but this is what I'm saying, that stories like that are so important to be on, uh, a mother putting that story on Facebook and that going viral to a degree is really, really key in educating. I'm not suggesting that we are putting that responsibility on the consumer, but at the moment, there's too many people that know absolutely nothing about this stuff. So the more people that have experiences like that, and as I say, I'm not condoning it or wishing that upon anybody, but that's the best marketing in terms of educating the consumers that they should be worrying about these things. And hopefully that will then tick into when they're purchasing a device, they're actually considering security when they're purchasing it over just being the price or whatever. They're actually starting to ask questions. So I'm going to go and buy this camera. So I want to understand, well, hang on a minute, I don't want my baby to be able to talk to a hacker. What do I have to do? It's just getting that process in their mind in the first place so that they're actually able to ask those questions. Even if they don't understand the security elements of it, they can go into Curry's and say, well, I don't want a hacker being able to talk to my baby. That sounds terrible, doesn't it? But it's quite shocking. So I think that's what we all need. But if they can go in and say that, then obviously their awareness of it, and I think that once we push that more, we might be able to meet in the middle from all the things you're saying. I always talk about myself as if I am the consumer. I'm not a hacker, so I'm just coming at it from a completely opposite end, I suppose.
Yeah, but you
But
are
yeah,
right.
let's.
Sorry.
No, it's fine. No, I'm talking too much anyway. So
Oh,
carry on.
I was just going to say that I totally agree with you because that way, if you force the consumer to care about it more, you force them to go ask their legislators and their lawmakers. And if enough parents go dragging on the sleeve of one lawmaker, of course they're going to think twice because they want to get reelected. So, yeah, they're going to make sure that they appease those worrying mothers. Definitely. And fathers, of course. By the way, I
Yeah,
would be terrified if that
that's
happened
why
here.
definitely, and that's why I think it's interesting to see what you. I can't remember which one of you said about the kite mark now, but you know, is there any leeway in that? Because all we need is one. You just need one parent to sue one of these manufacturers, and that will set the cat amongst the pigeons, won't it?
Definitely.
Or it will start to. So
Yeah, exactly.
I
And
wish that I was more. Oh, sorry.
okay. I love the doggy. The
Yeah,
doggy
Uncle
can
Ren.
stay. The cat has to go. Sorry.
I like both. Uncle Red, I was gonna suggest. I think that putting a lot of responsibility on one particular party makes them more powerful than they should. So as a consumer, if I'm buying a camera that Samantha made in Great Britain and I'm from Southern Africa, I'm gonna be like, well, Samantha made this very cheap camera. I could buy it for $10 instead of $15. It's my responsibility to understand what this camera does. I think that consumers get a lot of credit for being consumers, almost like it's a condescending way of the community of looking down at them and saying, you don't have to worry, we'll give you what's secure. But I think that consumers nowadays, they are educated enough to realize, hey, if I'm going to have a baby camera watching my kids over Wi-Fi, I have to know that they have to be a username and password that's unique to me, or else somebody else in the world is going to watch that.
I totally disagree with that. I think there's loads of people out there that wouldn't even think of that.
If
They don't even understand that it's on their Wi-Fi. They don't understand that somebody can, if they get into their work, they just don't understand those basic concepts of how a hacker can, just pivot from one to another. They've no clue. They're not in England anyway. Sorry.
Yeah, to be honest, if that's the case, to be honest, you and I and the rest of the InfoSec community, we have a big job to do. If we have manufacturers with default credentials out there, they're not telling the consumers that, hey, if you don't change our username and password, this is going to result out there.
Yeah,
I think that there's more work for those people like you and I to really go out there and fix it.
It's so much that people just find it laborious, don't they?
you can expect.
They just, oh my God, I've got to change the password again. They just don't get it. I don't know why. I wish I did, but they just don't get why it's important, or they don't. We've all heard the same old excuses. Oh, I don't care if I get out. I've got nothing to hide, and all that stuff.
Yeah, watch me. I'm an upstanding citizen. You can watch me all you want. You're not gonna get anything.
Exactly.
The thing is,
they just don't give a fuck. Excuse my French.
I totally disagree with that. You can't expect a consumer to know about safe streaming of video, safe streaming of audio, safe password policies, safe blah blah blah. I think you can expect a consumer to be aware of cybersecurity, but not of all of the risks that come involved with that. There's just not enough capacity in everybody to know everything about cybersecurity. But that's why I was proposing that seal of approval, that mark, that stamp that some legislator has at least had gone over, or a group of people. That's why I was referring to OWASP, where it's more of a community effort, where the community determines what the right way of securing an application can be. And we can even do that through DAOs now. The beauty is we have a blockchain, we have DAOs, and like that can be utilized for those kind of things. But it's more important for me that every camera that I see that has the red stamp of approval is only streaming encrypted video in a community approved encryption version, and is doing it through a secure web interface. Secure since there's only a login. Maybe it's also like, it's for a degree. It's about first of all starting with the most basic of shit out there, and only talking about webcams which have like a video stream. If we start with that, we can add on things which have audio stream one way, and then maybe a microphone and a speaker, and we can start building up like that. But I just think that right now every legislator and lawmaker out there is getting it off easy because they don't have to give a shit about what's happening. They just don't even have to look at it. They can be, they can
I'm
go. Sorry, go ahead. I talk too much as well.
No, no, sorry. I'm just gonna. No, 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 it's fine. Sorry, you just made me think. Sorry, if I don't say it while I think about. I know it's really. You know what all these, autistic, ADHD, and all that malarkey. Now I've forgotten already.
Same here, Samantha. Same here.
What was I going to say? Is there not some kind of? I'm sure. I don't know if it's a European law or maybe it's just a UK thing, or you might have something in the US, but there is specific rights for children under the internet governance. They have to be protected more. Is that a GDPR thing, or I don't even know, but I'm sure there is something that exists in this world in one of our countries.
Well, it's only true. Let's say you host a website where you're selling adult content, and I tell you on your sign-on form that I'm 25. A lot of people who host websites will take that as face value, and they will not actually respect anything I do after that. There's no legal requirement for them to do the verification. What I've found though is that I know since the beginning I've been fighting, saying we don't like to trust the government to police the internet. There's something about that, at least from my perspective, that's not right. Because when the government police the internet, I'm from Zimbabwe, a very small country where they would restrict encryption algorithms. When the government police the internet, they say, you can't just have me protect your kids, make sure that they're not talking to a creep. You might as well let me see everything that you're talking about. And there's a person who really likes their privacy. I think that we can secure the internet without government entities.
Well, there I
legal
beg to
recourse.
differ as well, because since you like your privacy so much, and I like it as well, GDPR is a big part there, and we willingly and we even we voted for it to have GDPR instated to protect our privacy better. There's also a law that
Yes.
regards to internet and storage of
But I
data.
was just thinking about.
Yeah.
But
But that's all. Isn't that all been a farce anyway? Because they just sling it somewhere in Europe and then
well,
put it over to America anyway.
The Americans are trying to do that.
believe me, if you violate GDPR laws in Belgium and you're found out because somebody tads on you or whatever, you're gonna pay a hefty fine, and you're getting a warning first time, but they will come check up on you if you have been listening to their warning. But I do agree to a degree that we also should be able to have that responsibility, since we have something like OWASP, and I know I keep referring back to them a lot, but I think OWASP is the one authority that I would trust in this. Like you say, I probably wouldn't trust my government either, because they're a bunch of 70-year-old people who have no idea about the internet. I'm not gonna let them regulate my internet. I get you on that point, definitely. Yeah.
Yeah, for me, it's more like
They're never amusing. High path.
Sorry, yeah. I think sometimes my internet acts a little bit funny. Hey Patel, how are you doing? Sorry that we keep talking. I like your banner. There's no place like 127001. I love that one.
Hi, I'm good. I've just joined, so I was just listening to the conversation.
It's good to have you here, my friend. What do you
Yeah,
think? Like, do you think that we should, how do you think that we can have a system where I can be sure that if I buy a camera for my girl's room, that it's secure. Is there a way to have something secure?
Mm, I'm not sure. You guys were talking about GDPR, right?
Yeah, that it's kind of a disaster as well. like IT security lab said, I get that you also don't want to have people in power to regulate shit like that because they can be bribed to put in a back door in the governance. You never know about that. I totally agree with you on that point as well. And plus, I trust my government now, but do I trust my government in 30 years as well? That's also something I have to think about. Not that I'll get another 30 years, I'll probably die at like 50 years old. Although I smoke, and they say that smoked meat lasts longer, so we'll see. It's like this internal battle of drinking alcohol and smoking. The alcohol tries to bring me down, the smoking preserves my body. Sorry, too much bullshit. Anyway, yeah, I think that some magnificent points have been brought up here, and I'm gonna go to bed for now as well because it's almost like 1 a.m. I'm really thankful for everybody being here and giving their excellent opinions. Like, some great points have been brought up here. Corrupt governments, should they be able to regulate that stuff? Yes or no? That's always a question. Should we have a mark that verifies the security quality just as we have the physical quality of a product and the physical security choke hazards? Should we have something like that as well? And then who should be able to regulate that? Who should be able to do that? And should we regulate and verify our testers as well, our pen testers? That's also an excellent question, because of course I can say that I'm a pen tester, but there isn't really anybody who can check if I did a good job, now is there? The only thing that will happen is if I did a bad job, I might find out in the news like a few months later because they got hacked.
Yes,
Love it, love
I
it.
agree. And that was why, sorry, just going, I suddenly remembered the point that I wanted to make a minute ago because of something you said, then you said something else and now I've forgotten. So, I'm sorry. I'm struggling with my memory at the moment. Well, it was nice to talk to you as well, Rat. I haven't seen you for a while, so I'm glad you're all right. And thank you for having us. And we'll do it again soon.
Yeah, don't worry about the ADHD thing. I think from the amount of times we all interrupted each other, I think ADHD is rampant in this room.
Well, yeah, it's all good here. I mean, I've been in much worse interruptions for sure, and I'm sorry about that too. I can't help myself. I get a little bit excitable.
It's okay if you don't say it immediately, you forget it. I know the feeling because somebody
Yes.
talks about something else and they make another great point, and it's a nightmare. Honestly, it's
And
a fucking nightmare.
It is, and I think natural conversation, when you're sat in front of people and you're having a conversation, you do tend to interject more. You might be saying something and I might just be going yes, yes, or agreeing with you, or gesturing, or, do you know what I mean? That's a natural behaviour for a lot of people when they're participating in conversation. But it's very difficult in spaces because a lot of the time that's all you're doing, really. Certainly for myself, I'm kind of gesturing, or I'm agreeing with somebody or something that you said, but it comes out and then of course it's like you're interrupting and you don't mean to, and it sounds rude, but it wasn't. Do you know what I'm saying? It's kind of crazy like that, which is annoying that you can't, but hey.
Yep, I totally feel you on that. Like, you sit here nodding and wanting to
Yes.
express your agreement. That's why I love seeing all of those emoticons go up as well. It shows you that people agree with you or like don't agree with you.
Exactly. So anyway, I've got to go because my dog needs to go out, as you've probably guessed already. So thank you very much. I'll see you all soon.
Oh,
Take care.
give him a good walk and a good hug from me.
I
Take care,
will.
Samantha.
Thank you. Bye, Rat. Take care.
Bye bye, thanks. Hey Hanzo, how are you doing, my friend?
Hello, Uncle Red. I'm fine. How are you guys doing?
Doing good, thank you.
I think it's probably very late for you.
Yeah, it's
Yes.
nearing 1 a.m. Although late, I've known a lot later nights, and at least it's relaxation now and not so much work, you know.
Yeah. How's your health now? You have been sick for like a week ago. So, how are you doing now?
It's a lot better, thanks. I feel a normal human again. One
Oh,
tip:
that's
never
yeah,
overwork yourself for months at a time. It's not healthy, apparently.
yeah. That has happened to me. It's like it's about the mental health, the stress we go through, and things which happens to us. The body can't take it anymore.
Definitely. The thing is, it always comes so sudden. It's not like your body suddenly degrades and degrades and no, it's like bam, and now you're sick, bitch.
Yeah, it has happened to me a lot. Like I've been used to work around like 36 hours a day,
Jesus.
and I was very enthusiastic in the tech support, and I was so exhausted by the end of the day by working like 36 hours a day and getting not enough sleeps and not a good diet that mess ups your body and the mental health goes on with it.
For sure. Yeah, like eating is a big important factor, eating well. And just the thing is, you should never overwork yourselves. Humans aren't meant for overworking. Like in the
Yeah.
old days, we used to have our physical work. We used to hunt animals and we used to be out and we used to run all day. And now we sit at a desk for like the whole freaking day. That's not
Yes.
healthy.
Yes, I totally agree on that, Uncle Rat. Yeah. That is the life that we are living right now. But
Yeah,
back then, we used to have, at least we used to go out with friends and have some chat that relaxes our mind. And it feels good when you go out with your friends and do stuff what you do. But these days, we are just behind of the screen 24/7.
yeah, and just force yourself to go for a walk every day, you know. A lot of people they eat lunch at their desk and they stay at their desk all day until they have to go home where they can sit in the sofa and go on their cell phones. At least go for a walk every day or a run or something like that. It doesn't feel nice. Like I don't have to kid myself. It's not fun to because you're sitting in the sofa. You want to watch Netflix. Netflix is a lot more fun than going. But these days, I force myself to run every day because I have fibromyalgia. I don't know if you know what that is, but it's like pain everywhere and shit like that. And
Oh,
the running really helps. It strengthens the muscles surrounding the pain points, which really helps with supporting the pain. So yeah, physical activity is always good.
yes, I totally agree on that.
And we should just stop being so over expecting of ourselves. Like I am very perfectionist and I always expect that I can do a lot more in a day than I can actually do.
Yes. Sometimes it feels like OCD that we want to be a perfect being, but humans are the weakest link. So
Yeah, and it's also the fact that there will just always be work, you know? I just want to have my work finished, but there is no finished. It just doesn't exist. If I finish it now, an hour later, somebody will message me on Discord asking for help there, or somebody will send me an email or whatever.
yeah,
It just doesn't end.
yeah, that mess ups our mental activity and the mental health. It's a lot of stress. At the end of the day, you'll be having a very bad mental health that messes up our body and bullshit. Sorry
Yeah,
for that.
it's okay. Just be very wary that you're able to segment stuff off from your life, and that you know how to relax as well. I don't know how to relax really. I don't know what I like to do. I don't like gaming. I don't like I don't like watching movies. I don't like watching series. I like reading books and I like working. That it's not good to only like those two things. Recently, I found out as well that I like swimming. Swimming's fucking awesome, by the way.
I totally agree on that. I used back in the days when I used to go every weekend for swimming with my buddies. That used to help me a lot to get social and do some stuff
Yeah, and
as
it's
a
very
extra.
supportive for your joints and for your muscles as well. Like if you run, you get all of these shocks in your body from hitting the ground, like shock, shock, shock every time that your foot hits the ground. But swimming is very supported. Everything is supported in the water.
Yes,
Sorry, I don't know why I'm talking about swimming at 1 a.m.
it's all right, Ankorat.
I think I'm going to go to bed, my friends. It was awesome talking to you, every single one of you. It's been amazing. I love meeting you guys.
Yes, and thank you for the hosting. So I will be expecting another host soon, whenever you will be.
Definitely, like I said, I'm going to stop working so hard and start making more time for the things I want to do. It just took me
Right.
like a lot of time to figure out where I wanted to be in life because I quit my day job to be a full-time pen tester, and like it's hard because we get paid from America. Nothing wrong with that, but it takes like 60 days before they even pay. Then it takes like God knows how long before it even gets here. Then it gets sent back because there's a problem with the bank, all of that bullshit. uh, I had to figure out my way in life and what I wanted to do, but now I think I have it figured out. We seem to have enough customers to keep a rolling work log going. I'm not alone working. Everything seems to be working out the way it's working now, so I'm keeping my fingers crossed, but right now I can make it so that I don't have to spend as much time working, which is that's always been my goal. I just wanted to, what I like to do is create shit. I like to make courses, I like to make
I love your
videos.
content. Sorry for the interruption, but I love your content on YouTube on the podium. What was it? The Podia?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, sorry for that, for pronouncing the wrong name.
Thank
Uh,
you.
and I think you have courses on Udemy as well, right?
Yeah,
With
exactly.
Dave Bamboo.
Those are the same courses as on Podia, so if you have a course on Podia and you would prefer it on Udemy, feel free to send me an email and I'll be happy to send you a code for Udemy as well.
Sure,
Thanks.
sure, sure.
Thanks so much, man. I really appreciate those compliments. I have no idea to how to respond to compliments. Every time you guys shower me with compliments and I don't know what to say.
That goes, you're not the one. I'm in the line too. So I really love your content. I enjoy it.
Thanks, bro. I really appreciate it. And there are a lot more hacking legends in this room as well. Like the IT Security Lab, go give him a follow. Ogre Ninja, fucking amazing guy. Like the Lemon, these are all my friends, and I'm so glad to have them around me. Thank you guys so much for being here, and thank you as well, Hanzo. I'll give you a follow. There we go.
Yes,
Now you have to make me proud. That's an obligation. Otherwise, we can't pump the cheese stock, and we need to get that up as high as possible because we're
sure.
taking over FTX. Go fuck Sam Bankman-Fried. All right, my friends, it's getting a little bit serious here in this room. I'll see you all later. Bye bye, amazing hackers. Much love.
Bye, guys.
Bye bye. Oh my god, that was awesome. Thank you so much for watching on YouTube as well, and especially if you've made it through this entire episode. That's an entire 1 hour and 40 minutes long with us bullshitting. Thank you so much. Thanks so much, YouTube, for probably demonetizing this video with all of the swear words, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye, amazing hackers.